let's look at a little bit more of these anti-democratic impulses here. We like to impose our will on other countries militarily in some ways, but also with our economic might or sanctions in other ways. Now, this one is scary because the Trump administration this week imposed visa bans and sanctions on certain European officials and NGO leaders involved in combating online hate and disinformation, including former EU Commissioner Thierry Bertone and Center for Countering Digital Hate head Imran Ahmed, accusing them of promoting digital censorship and against American speech and tech companies. Now, this move directly targets Europe's tech regulations, especially the EU's Digital Services Act, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other officials framing European enforcement actions against platforms like X, Meta, and Apple as coercive attacks on U.S. free expression. European governments pushed back hard, condemning the sanctions as an assault on sovereignty and democratic regulation, while analysts say the visa bans are likely a pressure tactic by Washington to undermine EU digital rules without triggering a full-scale trade war. And, it's bad enough that we're interfering with European regulators and freedom of speech, and that is concerning in its own right. But if there is one thing we value in this country, at least I thought we did, it was a free press. And we got a really disturbing development last Sunday night when Bari Weiss, the new editor-in-chief at CBS News, pulled a 60 Minutes episode investigating alleged torture and abuse at the notorious El Salvador CCOT prison, saying the segment lacked sufficient response from the Trump administration and didn't yet meet her standards for fairness. Now, this decision triggered internal revolt within CBS and public backlash, with the episode's reporter calling the move political and warning that allowing government non-response to block publication essentially gives administrations a de facto veto over inconvenient journalism. However, these people aren't terribly bright, and they didn't stop this segment from getting out. It was later broadcast by a Canadian broadcaster. This controversy sits inside a broader struggle between the administration and corporate media following Trump's lawsuit against CBS over their editing of a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris last year, Paramount's $16 million settlement with him in that case, Weiss's appointment by Paramount's new MAGA allied leadership, and growing concern that corporate consolidation and political pressure are reshaping editorial independence at one of America's most storied news institutions. And Tabitha, I want to start with you on this one. So, this CBS story is extremely disturbing. When you've got essentially hand-picked people at the helm of major news organizations there intentionally to spike stories that are inconvenient for the administration, like Jesse said earlier, you're living in a dictatorship.
Well, let's just speak plainly. Most of us wouldn't be doing what we were doing if all of the media in our country had not bent a knee. So anybody that has any sort of a spine right now sees the necessity to stand up. Those trolls are crawling all over social media. You can't even put a post on TikTok or Instagram, but especially on TikTok, unless you basically are, using code to get the message out there. And all of us are just spinning through this information as fast as we can, trying to get it out to the masses, if you will, because we know damn well that all these little markets that are saturated, like where I'm from, Fox News is everywhere. And so now Fox News is coupled, it's basically a Christian right evangelical brainwashing service. And if this is the only media that these people are getting, and all of the other media is now bending a knee. I mean, Jesus, 60 Minutes when I was a kid, that was as nonpartisan as you get. When those people came on, you were like, right, they have something to say. It's factual. They've done their homework. And to have these very vetted journalistic professionals crying out, hey, this is not right, we've got a whole other problem going on in this country.
And I should know, you talk about TikTok, that is now coming under the ownership of the same Ellison family that owns CBS and Paramount now. And yeah, these folks are huge MAGA sycophants, also huge pro-Israel, massive mega donors.
Speaking of pro-Israel,
yes,
you have people right now, if you go into the captions, apparently, I think it's on Meta, you can try and regulate your settings. And if you put something in there that is, say, pro-Israel, you're allowed to post it, or you're allowed to find those links. If you put anything in there for Palestine or any derivative of that, it says that it's not allowed. Just as an example.
Yeah, not surprising. And so if you look at Jesse, I thought we were the people that like invented this concept of a free press and freedom of speech, and now we're basically telling it's bad enough that we don't have it anymore here, and we should not tolerate it as Americans. But now we're telling Europeans that they also can't regulate the kind of the speech that's going on in their countries. Their phrasing, if I look at this, they said, Rubio, that these European regulators are stifling American speech, and what he essentially means is far right hate speech. They are essentially saying those things are the same now. Am I out of pocket?
No, that's exactly, I think, how Stephen Miller, aka Trump's brain, would see things and say things. And I think it brings up the point that free markets, free speech, these things don't exist in a vacuum, and private industry is going to follow. It's like a liquid. It'll go to the lowest possible path, no matter what happens. And so, Paramount settles for $16 million for Trump's spurious lawsuit about the Kamala Harris interview. And so now they have this, market-based decision-making, right? Where it's like, even if Trump's wrong, it'll cost so much money to fight him that it becomes a good business decision to just do whatever Trump wants. And because they are private industries that seek profit, not, some imaginary prize for best, most transparent news, they're going to follow the path of profit, which means do what Trump wants, because that's how you make more money in America right now. And so the government does have a role. It's kind of paradoxical that the government can have a role in protecting free speech by regulating these media companies and setting up incentives and carrots and sticks that prevent people from doing this kind of nakedly partisan stuff, and encourage people to print news that people need to hear, even if people don't want to hear it, and even if the government doesn't want to hear it. Instead, we have the perverse incentives right now, and we're just prioritizing anybody who does what Trump wants. You're going to have the most favorable deals. You're going to have your mergers go through. You're going to get rich. Anybody who does what Trump doesn't want, you're going to get sued. You're going to be tied up in lawsuits. You're going to be, banned from the air over and over again, with small moves and large moves. And so, again, under capitalism, industries and firms will just follow the path of least resistance to do what makes the most money. They have to. Their shareholder, if they're publicly traded, they're legally obligated to pursue profit. And so you cannot fix this problem without starting to fix the nature of capitalism. And at least, if you're not a socialist like me, at least I think have to have some social democracy and heavy government regulation to stop this kind of stuff from happening.
And fascism is capitalism turned up to 11, right? It is unrestrained capital doing whatever it wants without any pushback. Chuck, I think it's ironic that we are trying to lecture the Germans on how much fascist speech they need to allow in their country.
Yeah, it's kind of a odd, I don't know, irony doesn't seem to really go that, it'd be the right terminology there, but it's amazing to me. I mean, where we started off from to where we are now is so diametrically different than anything I could have ever imagined. And when you're talking about regulating, when you're talking about media and regulating speech, I mean, there's a point of hindrance when you start banning certain words or certain phrases, or there's a. I'm a big Trekkie, and there's a Star Trek episode that talks about that. The first speech censored, we're all chained irrevocably, and I firmly believe that. I mean, those of us that served, like myself, I mean, freedom of speech was one of those things that just absolutely had to exist. Now, granted, in the military, there was only certain things we could say, given certain regulations, different things. But as long as it wasn't detrimental, you were fine. But I think where we went wrong in the media is when the fairness doctrine went away. And I think that, if anything, to start righting the ship, we need to bring that concept back. And we need to say that, news needs to be presented and, here's the facts, here's what's happened, let it go with that. Unfortunately, where you have, to have this point of, people watching only one media outlet, and I don't want to call it news because it's not, it's propaganda more than anything. But, a certain Fox network decides to it's basically state-run media. So they're basically taking the North Korean model and instituting it, in real time here. Well, it's North Korea and Russia. That's kind of a weird hybrid of the two. Again, if we allow that, and this is one of the bigger keys I kind of want to hit on, if we, the people, allow this to happen, then we're sunk. And I think as we're seeing the resistance grow, with the No Kings movements, the speaking out online, great folks like us here pointing it out, calling it out for what it is, and not masking it anymore. I mean, to hit on another point, we've got to have a spine to stand up to these people, because a lot of these people that are in these positions of power are spineless. They will take whatever keeps them in power, and then that's the only thing they care about. And if that's what they care about, they're in the positions for the wrong bloody reasons.
Yeah, for